Hi felters and welcome. This video accompanies my needle felting kit for my 3 sheep baubles, which is available on Etsy. There will be a link in the description below. So this video is going to talk you all the way through it, and these are all the wools that we have in the kit, and we'll get everything out in a minute, and you have everything you need in this kit. So that's the ribbon, that's the pipe cleaner, these are the finger guards. There's a little card about my business. There's needles. So there are 3 needles in there. We'll talk through them in a minute. And then we have the wools. The core wool, the black Perindale wool, grey carded Corriedale, a yarn, and then a dark fawn beige wool and a mat. So that is everything you're going to need apart from a needle and thread. And you need that to sew on the ribbon. But if you don't want them to be baubles, they can be standalone sheep because they'll stand on their legs. So we're going to get started. We're just moving everything into place, and we're going to start with doing the body of the wool. So here are the needles. You have a blue, a green and a red, and it's all explained in the instructions. The red is the 38, the green is the 36 triangular, and the blue is my absolute favourite. It's a twisted or spiral. I think it's 40. So let's take the large section of white wool that you have. This is a white carded Perindale wool, and it might be in bits and pieces once you open it because I have to try and get the right weight for everybody in the kits. So we are going to try and divide this. Oh, just to say, you will get bits in the wool. It's called vegetation. It's all safe. The wool has been cleaned. So split it into 4 equal piles. You can do this by holding it in your hands and feeling, does it feel about the same size? So it's going to be 3 bodies, and then the last one is going to be the legs and the ears and the head for 2 of the sheep. So once you've split it into 4 equal parts, put 3 aside. So I am going to be talking for about an hour in this video. You can turn the volume down. You'll probably be able to understand what's going on if you do get a little bit bored, and I apologize for any interruptions. So these are finger guards to protect your finger. One is for the thumb and one is for the long finger, and put it on the hand that's holding the wool, not the one that's holding the needle, which is what a lot of people do first off. So don't worry if you've done that already. So take that large section of wool that we split off, and we're going to roll it up, and this is going to be the body of the sheep. And if you take the green needle, the 36, which is the slightly bigger needle, and it will do a lot of work for you, and you start felting. Hold on to the wool with the finger guards so you don't hurt yourself, and start stabbing. Now, if you've never felted, go and watch my video for beginner felters, or if you've never felted at all, and it will just talk you through a couple of key things. But put the needle in and out at the same angle, and you can see the marks where it's starting. It will take a while, and just keep folding it and keep it together as much as you can in your hand that you're holding it with until you've felted it all the way over, and then you'll be able to let go of it. So if you keep it nice and tight at the start, it will really help for your video. So keep felting it all the way over. Now this initial bit, you see I am going quite far in with the needle there. This initial bit definitely takes me about 10 minutes to go all the way over the body of the sheep. And now it's just about starting to stay together. So the wool is knitting together. As you felt, the barbs are pushing the wool down and the wool interlocks with itself. And that's why when you felt things, they go a bit smaller. So keep felting it all the way over with your green needle. It really is the best needle for this. If you had a 32 needle, then definitely try that one as well. But I should imagine you're a beginner, so this 36 is a great starter needle. So you can see it's really starting to hold its shape now. Check it's round, and we want it to be roughly 4 inches across at this point, 3.5 to 4 inches. So I don't like to use the finger guards all the time, so I'm going to take them off, and it's up to you at what point you might feel confident enough to take them off. Now stick with the green needle, and we are going to felt in one area quite closely in a little circle, and you're going to start to bring the wool together. See, that's the green needle. And start felting in quite close distances and just work your way round. And we're going to do this all the way over. And it does take about 20 minutes to go all the way around. Now you can see that is quite squishy and much more firmly felted. This is the fun part where it's quite therapeutic, quite meditative. You just sit there and slowly work your way all the way round. Now if we have a surface that's too fluffy, then it's going to be harder to attach the wool to it. So that's why it's good to work your way all the way around and felt this a little bit firmer. And you can see there's a big difference. And I'm not too worried about the inside of this being really, really solid, but it's good that the outside gets nicely felted. And I'm not going to make you sit through all of it because it would be boring. But like I said, it takes me a good 20 minutes just to sit there and work your way all the way around. As you get towards the end, it can get a bit sort of puffy. See, I've done half of it. Well, about half. It looks a bit like a mushroom there. As you get towards the end, so it gets a little bit puffy. When it gets to that sort of last bit, felt in the middle of that last bit and sort of all over it, just to push it down a bit so it's not sort of all bulging out. And I've worked my way across and through one. See there, I'm sort of going through the top of it so it's not so bulgy. So just take your time and felt all the way around. And this is all the basis of the body for your sheep. So there we go, nearly done. And this is not really firmly felted. I actually felt things a lot firmer, but for what we're doing today, this is perfect. So just give it a little squish, make sure it's round. And see, it is still squishy on the inside, but it's not a problem for what we're doing today. So there we go, that is the body. Now I'm going to use a different coloured mat here so that you can sort of see things a bit better. So I am transferring onto my own mat. So take the black wool that you have in the kit and split it into 6 piles. We are going to have 4 legs, 1 head, and then 1 for the ears. I have included some spares in the kit as well to help you with little bits of things like tails and faces and things like that in case we use all the wool up by accident. So 6 equal piles, and again I'm holding them in my hands and just feeling if they feel about the same. And this is the last one, so this will be 5 and 6. There we go. So keep the 4 there, and we're going to put 2 aside. Getting rid of white wool there. So these are going to be the 4 legs, and we're going to start by making a leg. So take the end, I just gave it a little twist under, and then I'll start rolling it into a cylinder. And it's going to be about 1.5 inches to 2 inches in length, and about 3/4 inch wide if you want to get technical, but don't worry too much. If you've got the same amount of wool in each pile, your leg will be the same, roughly the same size. So take the green needle, and again we're just felting it through so that it stays together, so we don't have to hold it all the time. So we're going to round off one end for the leg, and this is the end I'm going to sort of round off a little bit. And the other end, we can felt it downwards and inwards a bit, but you can leave it fluffier. So to stop it all sort of escaping out the top, just give it a little felt down, but you don't worry about it having to be too neat, because this fluffy wool will help us when we attach it to the base of the body. And I think I just poked myself, so there we go. It happens all the time. But if you're using and holding the needle quite lightly, you generally don't hurt yourself too much. So we'll work our way all the way over with the green needle. Again, probably about 5 minutes, just to sort of keep it all together, keep it in that shape. And there we go. This is the end that I've decided to be the rounded end. So again, I think I'm still on the green needle and still just trying to bring it together a bit. And then we'll go to the red needle to help really felt it together and make the surface nice and neat. The blue needle is fantastic for really smoothing your surface over. These needles are all from Heidi Feathers, who is a fantastic company. I've included a card in your kit which is from Heidi Feathers. So there we go, that's it loosely felted. Still a bit fluffy, and that's the rounded end. That's the slightly flatter end, doesn't have to be perfect. So take the red needle and then going to go over, much like we did with the sheep body, we're going to go over it in close detail and just felt it all together, and this will really firm it up, and you'll really start to get the feel of what felting is all about when things start to firm up nicely. And again, this took a good 10 to 15, say 10 minutes per leg, going all the way over them. You can start to feel the difference as well, but it really is what we sort of say the magic of felting, when it starts to come together nicely. So keep going all the way over it, moving it round. I sort of tend to do one half and then I go and do the top half. And again, just keep rounding off the top bit. There you go. You can see that bit's that's squishy. That's a slightly bit firmer. It's quite tricky to see on the black wool, so I do apologise. I will show you one of the legs with the white wool too. And again, as I said, I'm going to speed this one up because you don't need to watch me do all of this, otherwise the video would be a lot longer. But again, like I said, a good 10 minutes just smoothing it all over. That's the top end, which is a little bit rough, but you can just sort of flatten it off a bit, but you don't have to make it look perfect. So there we go. That's a little bit neater than it was before, and I give it a roll between the hands. Always helps, and it makes it sort of even cylindrical shape. I think I do have a little measure, so when we finished, it's about 1.5 inches. It doesn't have to be exactly the same length, but as long as all your legs are the same length, it's a bit easier. And even if one looks a bit wrong, don't worry too much. You can squidge it up and down, and about 3/4 inch across. So now do another 3 legs and put them aside. We are going to make the face, which is extremely similar shape to the leg. So take one of the 5th pile of black wool, roll it up, and again we're really going to round off one end, and that's going to be the nose. So the beauty with this sheep is you have no face details to do for the first one, so this is a real sort of practice. And then the next sheep will do the face details, and then the last sheep will do the face details and the horns. So the horns is working with a little pipe cleaner, so it's a little bit of wire armature, so it's good for you to try it. So same shape as the leg, but you do sort of try and neaten off the back of it a little bit. We are going to attach the ears into the back, so make sure the nose is nice and smooth and flatten off the back of it. I do sometimes squish it so it's a little bit more of a sort of a thinner face shape, I suppose, but you can literally do that with your fingers. So if you aim for the leg shape and then at the end just squish it. I think I might show you the squish. No, I think you can see I've squished that a bit. So that's all nice and neat. Now we're going to do the ears. So take the black part, split it into 2. If they're feeling a little bit large, maybe take a little bit out, but lengthen it out and then twist it around on itself. And this gives you the round shape. So hold on to the end once you've sort of taken it and twisted it back on itself. And then we'll start felting that bit flat onto the mat. Now it always ends up, I've changed to a white side of the mat now. It always ends up sticking to your mat. So felt it a bit, then peel it off and turn it over. Felt it a bit, peel it off and turn it over. Things do stick to your mat quite a lot. It's to do with how sort of deeply you felt an item. Try not to stab too deeply. Go to the red needle for this. You can start with the green, but after a while, see that's fluffy, that end bit, keep hold of that and keep that fluffy. But after a while, definitely go to the finer needle, the red one, and you will sort of feel the difference with it felting at a shallower level almost. So felt it all over. You've got the shape of the ear there already when you twisted it round on itself. So just tidy up the edges a little bit with a few stabs into the end. See that it's been sticking on the mat, so I pulled it off, felt it a bit more. And these ears don't have to be perfect. They just have to sort of look a little bit flat with not too much fluff sticking out. They sort of take 3 minutes each, not too long. They're just tidying up there. Be careful of your fingers with that bit. So that's a very basic shape. We're going to fold it in half, and then we're going to felt through the base of it and still leave that fluffy bit just at the end. But at the base of it, if you felt a sort of a line down, this keeps the ear folded in half and makes it nice and perfect for attaching it and keeping it in shape and attaching it to the back of the head. So just felt it through a little bit, shouldn't take long, and it will hold that folded look. I'm just tidying it a little bit there, but it doesn't really show with the black, so it's quite hard for you to see. There we are, little fold in half. Then do exactly the same with the other wool. So take it, and I'll show you that, round it off, and that gives you that nice circular shape. And then smooth it off again. So here we are, 2 ears. Lovely. So let's start attaching. We will attach the legs to the sheep first. I generally find this easier because if you attach the head, you have to get the legs in the right place. So if you attach the legs, then it's easier to get the head in the right place because it's just one thing. And that's how we're going to sort of attach them. I decide, looking at the ball, the body of the sheep, which way's the top, which way's the bottom. Sometimes I squidge it a bit so it's a bit more oval. And then I think, honestly, if it's a round ball and you place a leg anywhere, the first one, I don't think it matters where you place it. The rest of them will just, you have to put them beside them and then back a bit and it will look fine. But I sort of squidge it a bit so it's a bit more oval. So we are felting with the green needle all the way through the base of the leg, going down into the body. And all that sort of fluffy wool that you had left at the end is great because it will help attach the leg to the body really easily. You go all the way around, holding it in a sort of downwards. I hold it quite firmly with my finger there, felt it all the way through. And if you hold it in the direction you want it, it should stay there after you've felted it a bit. So imagine a stool with 3 legs and they're sticking out a bit. That's how we're going to do the legs of this sheep, like a stool, but with 4 legs, all sort of pointing out a bit. And it gives it a nice stable base. So as I said before, if you don't want to have the ribbons on these sheep, it's absolutely fine because they will stand on their own legs. So once you've done one, take about 5 minutes felting around the base, give it a tug, see if it's attached, and then take another leg. I think one of my legs looked a bit big, so I was going to put it on one of the back legs. And then take the next leg and put it beside it, felt all the way around the base. Exactly the same, make sure it's nice and firmly attached. And the third leg. Now, I think I put that in the wrong position, so guess what? You can just pull it off. And I moved it over a little bit because it looked like it was just a trio then. So I've moved it slightly over on the sheep and started again. Felting is so forgiving, and you can do this with honestly anything. If you make a mistake, don't worry. Pull it off and start again. Or if not with these guys, but if you have real difficulties, you can literally cut things off. I have cut the neck of a cow and made it shorter and reattached it. So anyway, it's very forgiving. So there we go, 4 legs on. And then this is why it's easier if you take the head and then you can position it, decide which is front and back, and you position it at an angle, not too low and then not too high. That would look, you know, silly if it went up too high. Just sort of on the front, it's almost 45 degrees, but between the front legs. And then we're going to take, again, the 36, the green needle, and felt all through, along and around the base of it. And we're going to felt downwards so that the black wool is going to felt into the body. So if you try and just felt right down at the base, if you felt too much on top, then you're going to start to distort the head shape too much. So that's why you go all the way around the base. and you can get a really good attachment. So you're going right in there and through the back of the head as well, because that is going to be covered up with the ears, so that won't notice if you're felting in there. And you can do some nice firm felts. This is the back bit here where the ears are going to go, so you can go all the way down and in. See how far I'm going all the way in through the back of the head there, and it'll give a nice firm attachment. And if you're holding underneath the sheep bauble, you're not going to hit yourself with the needle. It should be absolutely fine. And then again, give the head a little tug. Check that it's attached strongly, that you're happy with it. No one wants a head to fall off. And then we're going to do the back of the ears. I'm quite forceful here, trying to get all the wool in and attached. And again, I do spend at least 3 or 4 minutes going around this. There we go. So we're going to take the ears, and you can have them pointing down, pointing forwards, pointing upwards. It would all sort of affect the look of your sheep. I like mine just pointing downwards because they're quite neat and out of the way. I recommend this position as well for the horns, so when you put the horns on, they go around the back of the ears easily. And so hold it in, and then that fluffy bit that we kept hold of, that's what you're going to felt through into the back of the head. So that works really well. Check it's all right. Again, like I said, you can just pull the ear off and start again if it's not in the right place. You're going to felt it through, and we're going to cover this up with fluff afterwards, so this doesn't have to be neat at all, but it has to be well attached. So that's one ear. I do apologise that the black sheep was the first sheep, because it is tricky to see exactly what I'm doing with the wool, but it's all in the instructions and I have described it all to you, so hopefully you get it. So attach the second ear in exactly the same fashion with all that fluffy bit helping hold it on. So there we go, looking good. Next we are going to sew the ribbon on the top. So you have a length of ribbon, cut it into 3 or cut it to the length that you want it to be. You might want it shorter than mine or longer than mine. So these guys can go on door handles, on cupboard handles, on Christmas trees. You could Christmasify them up a bit if you wanted to. They are great as gifts. And you could use your own ribbon if you don't like mine. So I take mine and I fold it over and I sew that through. This gives it a firm platform to attach it to the sheep, basically. And I do this with all the ribbons I use so that there's no fraying at the end. So I just find it just gives it that nice firm attachment. So just sew that folded bit over. It doesn't matter what colour thread you use because we're going to cover it up, and it doesn't have to be neat. I am not a neat sewer, so but this is, I think, the easiest way to do it. You could get a large needle and just a thin cord or a cotton and just sew it once through, and that could be your loop if you wanted to not use this. I generally tend to go closer to the head rather than further back because it's top heavy. The head will sort of pull the bauble down, so I partially attach it and then I'll have a check, but I try to go just a little bit closer to the head than the bottom end, and you're just sewing it through into the body of the sheep. Sew it fairly deep, you know, it doesn't have to be all the way through, but not in the tiny surface layer. And just probably about 12 sews through makes it firm enough. But like I said, give it a little hold up in a sec just to see that it's hanging correctly. So there we go. Yep, he's fine. He's not hanging or tipping forwards. Definitely happens with my Highland cow baubles because they've got horns as well, so they generally, you know, you have to be slightly forwards, otherwise they will tip. And then we'll just tie it off, and I sort of push it all the way through the body and then cut it off there because you can, basically, and it will keep the thread nice and safe. There we go. So that's the ribbon. We're nearly done on the first sheep. Hangs perfectly, so that's not a problem. So we're going to take the carded Corridel dark fawn, or any beige if you were doing this yourself at home, and take some of the, it's called a slither or a slither, the sections it's in. pull some off and then just rough it up between your hands a bit so it's not so neat. And we are going to take the green needle, the 36 triangular, and just roughly felt it in. You're not doing a smooth finish here, unless you want to, and it would take a lot longer, but you could make it a smooth finish all the way over. But I like the slightly rough effect, and it gives sort of a little bumpy sheep coat effect. So they're probably about 1/2 centimetre apart, and then get a little bit more, and you're going to work your way all the way around the sheep, going right under the neck, under the ears, between the legs. When you get to the top of the legs, just work it around the top of the leg. It's quite easy. And then also when you get to the top where the ribbon is, I think I'll show you a little bit in a minute, but this doesn't take long at all. You should have this done in about 10 minutes. And it really is a simple, easy sheep coat effect. I have videos on different sheep coats effects on my YouTube channel, so do have a look. So here we are, speeding it up. Just it joins really easily, so it's not a problem. There's no massive join marks because it's all bumpy. That's why carded wool is definitely the best for beginners, but if you've seen me before, you'll know that. I go on and on about it. And I have a video on different types of wools. If you want to learn a little bit more, go to my beginner playlist. So here we are, feeding it all round. You can go behind the ribbon easily, and then you can go across the top of it, and you can actually slightly felt into this one, but just be careful because you could break the needle. If your ribbon doesn't let you, just go across it either side. Then we take a little bit of black wool. I'm just trying to make it a little bit shorter by sort of pulling it and layering it back together. And we're going to place it over the head and felt through the middle of it so that the middle is behind the ears. Felt it in, and then you're going to fold that other bit forwards. See, there's a bit at the front there and a bit at the back. So you felt it through and attach it, and then fold it forward so it's like a forelock or a fringe. Basically it covers up all your messy ears, and it looks quite sweet on the sheep. And when you fold it forwards, you're going to need to felt it just with a couple of pokes, not too many, just to keep it forwards so that it doesn't pop back and it looks all fluffy. So there we go. And tail. So many times I forget the tail. Now you could do the tail black if you wanted, but I'm doing it beige. So take a section of the fawn colour. I give it a little twist just to make it easier to felt it into a smaller point, and then felt through. Make sure that's firmly attached. Position it, I just do it up a little bit from the back legs. Then let it sort of fluff up. So you've attached it, it's not going to come off. And then I sort of poke it in, and I almost swirl it round a bit to give it that sort of round shape. And don't over felt it, just felt the wool in and felt it around the base a bit, and a couple of pokes just through the middle. This is a very loose, little fluffy tail. You could do a detailed sort of longer tail if you wanted to, make that on the mat and then attach it separately, but this is just a suggestion of a tail. So there we go, all done. Well done, that's the first one. I do suggest getting up, having a walk round, having a break before you start the next one. Maybe split them up over a couple of days. But I mean, you could definitely do them all in one day. I probably wouldn't because it's a lot of felting. But on to the next one. So get to the point where so you had the wool split aside. So take one of the big sections of the white wool and turn it into a body, which again would take you a good sort of 20 minutes, half an hour. And we've done that. Then take the next section of the big fluffy wool and split that in two. We have got to make legs, ears and face out of this lot for 2 sheep. So split it in 2 and then split it into the 6. Put one pile aside and split the pile you have into the 6. And this is the 4 legs, head and ears. And exactly the same as we did before with the sheep with the black legs. We are going to thin it out a bit, stretch it a bit, and then take one end, start rolling it under and keep it as tight as you can and form a little cylinder about 1.5 to 2 inches in length. There we go, roll it up. And then we're going to take, so that's going to be the leg. So we're going to take the green needle, start to felt it all together so that it stays in shape, and then take the red needle and go all the way over it. And remember to round off one end. And don't worry, I don't go all the way through it. I just got my other mat so you could see it a bit better. So we still got the green needle, we're just finger guards if you want them, don't forget, because this is obviously quite close work with the needles and your fingers, so if you are new to it, you're probably likely to stab yourself, as I demonstrated earlier where I stabbed myself. So start to bring it all together. Remember, this is the flatter end. See how it's sort of just coming out a bit, so I sort of might felt it downwards so it stops it sort of popping upwards, but we don't have to over felt that end because that is the fluffy end that we're going to use to attach to the sheep's body. So I'm going to go over this leg and just refine it all, and you can have a little bit of music whilst we do. It's exactly the same as we did with the sheep before. There we go, so we've got the 4 legs, and now we're going to make the head. And this was the 2 piles of wool, so I'm just going to re-split it. And we need 2 ears and a head. That's how we're going to do the ears in a minute. They're about the right size, just checking, and then I've got the rest of it left. I was making that ear a bit bigger. The rest of it left. Oh, I'm making my ears the right size. And then this is going to be for the head. So take what you have left, and we're just going to, just checking, it's going to be roughly the same size as the leg. I felt it was a little bit too big. Remember, your ears don't have to be massive, so don't think you have to use the rest of the wool for your ears. And spread it out a little bit, and then start rolling it up. And exactly as we did before. Yeah, it's about the same size there. Quite happy with that. We're going to take the green needle, go all the way over it. Oh, it's much nicer in fast motion for you, isn't it? And then smooth off one end. So that was going to be the back bit, and this is going to be the rounded off nose end. And then start to smooth it all over with the red needle. So we're going to be attaching details to this one. See how I've squished it a bit so it's a bit narrower. So we're going to be attaching details to this one, so you definitely want it smoothed over with the red needle to make it easier to attach the black that we're going to do for the eyes and the nose. So take the black, you might have to use it from the spares kit, and take a very small amount, literally tiny amounts. Make sure these are equal because we're going to do, I think we're doing the eyes first for these. Roll it between your hands. This just speeds up the felting, and you can definitely see that they're roughly the same size. Eyes are always better slightly smaller rather than slightly bigger. If you do massive eyes on your sheep, they look odd. So just go slightly smaller, and this looks too big anyway, but don't worry, because you see as I felt it, it felt into the wool a little bit, so it looks a little bit smaller. So that's one on, and you want it towards the back but not too far back. And then if you look at the top, or even if you put your needle all the way through out to the other side, you can see where the other eye should be if you keep the needle level. But look at it from both sides and from the front, and you'll definitely see if your eye is level or not. If it's not, if it's really bad, then pull it off and start again. See how it felts in a little bit, and it looks a little bit smaller. There we go. So that's the eyes, super easy eyes. With a lot of my creations, I use glass eyes, and I've got lots of videos on that, and just sort of the more needle felting you do, the more professional eyes you'll want to do, but these are perfect. So take a little bit of wool, twizzle it between your fingers because you want it to be thin for the mouth, and we're going to do, this is the lower mouth, and then we'll do the nostrils above it. So I hold it in place either side, and I felt the ends. I always have a bit of black wool that is slightly longer than the length I want it, because when you felt the end of it, it sort of felts into itself a little bit. So if it's slightly, see how it sort of felts into the end bit there, so that's nice and straight. I'm pretty happy with that, and then I go along and felt it all. Now I am using the blue needle here, and the red needle would be absolutely fine. It's just the blue needle seems to catch the fibers better, so that's why I really like it. And then just very gently felt it all in, not too much felting because it might start to sort of disappear in to the sheep's face, and you don't want that. So take another bit which is a really similar size. This is going to be the nostrils. So you place it above it about 1/2 centimetre and felt in the middle. So you're going to felt the point in the middle just to give you a base to start the V from. So about 1/2 centimetre up. So felt the middle bit. Then you'll be able to let go and then take one side, keep it twisted or twizzled, lift it up a bit and then felt it in. Now this is fine detail work, so don't panic if you're struggling. This, all it is practice, and this is why it's good that we start with this one and then we do another face. Your second face will probably be much better if you've never done this before than your first face. And then to take the second one and move that up to form the nice V shape, and then just felt it in. And then we're going to have a connecting piece that goes down between the two. And as I said, I always take a piece that's a little bit longer than the area I need it for, because you can felt it, the ends of it into it. So we're going to do the joining bit. So a little bit shorter, but a little bit longer than the actual size that you need. And then felt the point of the V and felt the mouth area. And then just very gently felt along it. And you can see I've got a little bit of excess at the bottom, a little bit too much maybe. See, I can felt that end bit there in, and then I just pulled the excess and I felted it along the line there. So that is a really simple nose and mouth to do for most sheep, and unbelievably I still use that an awful lot. So there we go. And we're going to attach, no, we're going to make the ears. So it's probably slightly easier for you to see with the white wool. Oh, a bit fussy there, getting it the right size. And then stretch it out. It's a little bit clumpy there, so just stretch it out a little bit, layer it a bit, and then when you do the twist, it should all be quite easy to get it in. So twist it round and hold on to that end, and then go to the green needle to begin with, because that will just bring it all together. See, it's got that circular bit, so that's the shape that we want, but we want it flat. And don't worry about the edges being a bit fluffy. We'll sort of gradually felt them in, but just felt the flatness. Yeah, that's okay. The size is not too big. So felt them through, keep that fluffy bit. And then it's a little bit irregular around the outside, so we'll just neaten that up in a minute. So I'm just neatening by holding it on its end. I would wear finger guards for that bit in particular, because even I poke myself doing that all the time. And there we are. See, we're forming the ear. And as I said, don't forget to turn it on your mat so it doesn't stick. There we go. Fold it in half. So the size is, yeah, a 1 1/4 inches roughly. It doesn't have to be perfect to that size, but you don't want them too big. So fold it in half and then felt the line down the base of the ear. And this will keep it nicely folded in half for you. There we go. I do both sides when I do this, just because it makes it nice and secure. Lovely. And then that's how it's going to go. So if you do the second ear, see how facing forwards is very different. So 2 ears and the head. So we can start to attach everything. Now you can do this. I'm attaching the ears first and then attaching the head to the body. It's completely up to you. Sometimes I find it easier to just put the head on first and then attach the ears. But there we go. You just hold them where you want them to be. As I said, I like mine facing downwards, and just felt all that fluffiness into the back of the head, and they'll be really well attached for you, nice and easy. Sometimes I felt a little bit of the inside too, just to really make sure that they're firmly attached to the head. So attach the other ear. So these sheep you can adapt. You could do different coloured coats, different coloured legs. You could do all sorts of things. Different shaped horns. I twist my horns sort of round, but you could twist them in a big arch. You know, you could really have a play around with these sheep. I also do a needle felted Highland cow kit, which has been one of my most popular. Sleeping Highland cows, I call them, because they've got no legs. And they've got really lovely coats. So if you're enjoying this kit, you definitely might enjoy that kit. So I'm just felting all the fluffiness in, and then we're going to attach the head and the legs to the second sheep. And for the third sheep, you're going to need to do all of this again, and then we'll have a different coat and the horns to put on. So attaching the legs first and then the head. well done so far, attaching everything. I didn't think you needed me to talk you through it, but so next we're on to the wool coat, or the wool yarn, as I know it's called yarn in America, but I've got into the habit of calling it that. So take the wool, take the end of it, you don't need to cut any sections off, take your green needle and literally start felting the end of it into the body. And it doesn't have to be thoroughly felted, so felt the end of it in quite well. And then you're just going to sort of gather it with the needle slightly and just felt it in. That's all you're doing. There's no trick to this. There's no technique. You just take, you can do this with all sorts of wool. You just take the wool bit as it goes round and just sort of gently give it a few stabs and felt it in. And make sure there's no gaps. I sort of feed it all the way round. I follow where it is sort of going on the sheep. I normally do this all in one piece, it's not a problem. And you just go gradually all the way round. See how it doesn't really show as a, you know, you've attached one piece, it sort of merges all together quite nicely. Just sort of gradually feed it round, go under the neck, down through the legs and over the top. If you sort of end up filling up one side and you've got a bit of a gap, you can cut it, finish the end by felting it in and then start with another piece. But I generally manage to get all the way around the sheep with one piece. It's not, doesn't seem to be a problem. And we're going to keep a tiny bit back for the tail. Obviously, hopefully I've provided you with way more than enough. If you just, it's only one sort of layer you need. But if you didn't have enough for the tail, just use some of the white carded in the spare. Or don't have a tail, it's up to you. So you can see I'm feeding it all the way around, go across behind the neck so it will cover up the joining with the ribbon and the sewing that you did. But really it's so simple. Don't overcomplicate it, just felt it in. If you've got any sort of, at the end, just sort of go round it all with your needle and make sure it's all sort of smooth and there's no big bits sticking out. But I think it's a lovely sheep coat effect. So we're getting towards the end here. So I would cut where I think I will need it and then just felt that last bit in. And it with the very end strands, just keep felting them and they'll sort of disappear. There we are. And just keep felting them in. And I am just using the green needle. It seems to be the best for this one. And there we go. You literally have a very nice sheep coat. Very quickly as well. There we go. Looks lovely. So we're going to do the tail. So I take a small section, about 5 inches, I would say, of the wool yarn. So I do spend a bit of time just sort of making sure there's no bits that are a little bit loose or that could come loose, because you wouldn't want it to sort of be pulled off or anything. And actually it is fairly simple to pull it off if you didn't like it, by the way. So take a section about 5 inches or so. You can give it a little curl beforehand. It's just going to be a little bump to represent the tail. I will sort of felt all the way around the bottom to make sure it's firmly attached, and a few felts through the middle to make sure that it stays on. But as I said, you could use the white carded and do this as well if you wanted to. And I think it just finishes the sheep off quite nicely if they have their little tails. Pardon me. So I've been talking for nearly an hour. If you're still listening, thank you. It's a bit of a long one, but I know some people do enjoy a much more real-time video as well. So that's why this is going on my channel for everyone to see and to use. I do have another sheep bauble one I did a while ago, a very similar sheep. So you might have seen this already, but there we go, there's a little bump. And then we're going to do a little bit of white for the forelock. Take a little section, felt through the middle, between the ears, and then fold it forwards. This sort of just covers up any of your felting marks. That's why I do the fold forwards. There we go. And then just give it a few felts so it stays in place. With the Herdwick, we do a white, even though he's got a grey coat. But actually, Herdwicks do have a fluffy white forelock rather than a grey, because I thought originally you would put grey on the top of the Herdwick head, but it always looked a bit funny. But it's up to you. Right, so there we go, all done, number 2. So number 3, get to this point where you've done everything the same, the legs, the body, the head, the ears, and then take your pipe cleaner, whatever. If you've got your own pipe cleaner, I fold it in half normally. You want it to end up being about 6 inches, but the ones I supplied in the kit, fold it in half, and then I give it a twist just to make it a little bit easier to attach the wool. You don't have to, but I do think this makes it a lot easier. So like I said, it's about 6 inches. It's going to go there, and then we will do the twisting to give it the horn-like effect. Pipe cleaners are a lot easier to begin with when attaching wool. So take some of the dark fawn, make sure there's no bits in it because this will show. It's about 6 or 7 about 7 inches worth. Now it comes in a slither, so you split that slither because it's too thick to be wrapping it around. And I always start from the middle and work out with horns. You could try and go all the way across, but I find if you go middle outwards, you can control how much is left at the end of the horns, and you can pull it off if you've got too much wool. So when you start, you're not going to felt any of it. You're just going to wrap it around the pipe cleaner and keep it nice and flat in your hand as you feed it on, and nice and tight, and literally the bottom end of it will probably stay on there because it's the pipe cleaner, because it's fluffy. And then get to the end and just start wrapping it round, controlling it and keeping it nice and flat and smooth. Now again, this is a practice thing, it just takes time. So when you get to the end, if you've got too much, just pull some off. I think I'm just about all right with what I've got here. And you want it to go a tiny bit over the end bit, but not too much. See, I've got a little tiny bit there. That's not too bad. I can just fold it in. I'm taking the red needle, which is the finer needle. Now you do have wire in the pipe cleaner, so do be careful about breaking your needle, but you will find that the finer needles just help attach the wool a bit better. And I've gone in really close here. And I'm going in at 45 degrees, and I'm just felting along just to make sure it's attached for now. Don't worry if you've got an area that's a bit thin or that's a bit too thick, you can add more on, but we're just making sure this base layer is all on and it's not going to come unraveled. So there we go, that's definitely attached. So once it's attached, spend a bit of time rolling it, felting, and rolling it, felting, getting all sides of it. This can easily take me, I didn't take too long with these, but a good sort of 5 to 10 minutes on one side and then onto the other side. When I do horns on my larger animals, I can spend a lot of time on the horns. So you've attached one section, then go and do the other section, wrapping it round all the way to the end. I think I'll show you it all. See how I'm keeping the wool quite flat in my fingers there. You don't want to twist the wool at all. You want to keep it flat to the pipe cleaner. Now I've got too much here at the end. I can definitely tell that. So I'm going to break the end of it off before I get too much further along. See, I can tell that's definitely going to be too much. And this is why it's nice, because you can control the end of it. And then just wrap, wrap, wrap. So you're slightly over the end. I wouldn't panic too much if you've got a teeny bit of white showing. And these animals aren't really for children because they can easily be pulled apart. And also, just to warn you, dogs and cats love them. So if you've got cats, be a little bit careful about them getting them. So felt the end in, and then start to do the rolling and felting. See, I've got that 45-degree angle because it stops me from sort of jabbing down onto the wire too much. And that's neatened, but I've got a thin section there, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. Carded wool makes it so easy to add wool and not show all the join marks. So just wrap it round and felt it in. And they're not going to be much thicker than this. This is their sort of thickness. We don't want a massive pair of horns on this little sheep. And there we go. So try out the blue needle, see what you think. The red needle is perfectly sufficient, but as I said, this is one of my most favourite needles for neatening things. So give it a go. So there we go. We are going to attach these horns. Just at the back of the head there is where I like to put them. Again, have a play around. Take a little bit of the white carded wool. You want it fairly short staple length. So I sort of pulled it and layered it a bit. You can find the middle of the horns by folding them up like that, and then hold them. It's a little bit tricky. Hold them in place and then spread that wool over it. Now we're going to felt either side of the horns. So we're not actually felting right through the middle where we would catch the metal. So if you felt either side of the horns, sort of in a line behind them and a line in front of them, this will secure them really well. And then sometimes once they're all on, I give a few little stabs through the middle, but you have to be careful because of the metal. But this definitely secures them brilliantly. I've never had a pair of horns fall off. I had a tail fall off once. So felt them through and then tidy up all the fluffiness, because you don't want any of that showing, although we are going to put a forelock on him, so the front bit is not too much of a problem. But you can give the horns a little tug and you can feel that they're definitely attached. But get rid of all the fluffiness at the back there, just felt it in. So really simple, really easy. We are nearly done on your third sheep bauble. You should be very proud of yourself. We're going to do the grey coat, and again it's really simple like the first sheep. Now if you want to shape them, I twist them back and round. You might want to do forwards and round, so do play around with them. There we go. So nearly there. So take the grey, which is a carded corridel, I think, and just fluff it up a little bit in your hands again like you did with the first one. Take the green needle and we're just going to felt it in. And I think this is a really nice sheep coat effect. Everybody loves a Herdwick, by the way. So if you're thinking of starting up a little business with sheep, Herdwicks are really popular. Still taking out little bits. This vegetation would have been from where the sheep was in the field, from where the sheep might have been brought in the night before. There might have been shavings or sawdust or anything, because when they shear them, they like them to be dry. So it could be anything, but you know, the wool has been washed and heated, so it's all fine. Anything in there is dead. So feed it all round, same as we did before, going up and between the legs, all around under the neck and either side of the ribbon, so that it's all nicely covered up, so you don't see any of the sewing marks that you did. And yeah, really fantastic little coat. Yeah, just a little bit there needed. You should have more than enough grey in your kit to cover him nicely. There we go. This wool's quite a variegated colour. There's a lot of sort of lighter grey and whites in it, so it does look quite nice. And then next up, once the coat is all attached, we're going to do the tail. So you could do, or just move your legs. If they go a bit bent, you should be able to just move them back into the correct position. So the tail, you could do a white tail. I think I did a white tail on one of them without thinking, but a grey tail probably looks a little bit more correct. So, and we're going to do the white for the forelock or fringe. like I said, you could try grey for the forelock, but I'm not sure if it suits them. So have a try. But they definitely need a little bit of something on top of the head. There we go. Just felt all through behind the horn so that you're not felting into the wire, and then fold it forwards. This is quite a little bit. You do need to felt some of it over the horn a little bit there, because it's quite tricky to get it right, pulling it right forwards. And if you haven't got enough, just attach another layer and felt it down a bit, and then it just gives them that nice little characterful fringe. There we go. It's a little bit fluffy. Great. And then we're going to do the tail. It looks really a little bit fluffy. Yeah, just pull it out a bit if you're thinking it looks a little bit silly, if you felted it in a bit too much. Did I do a white tail on this one? I must have. So take the wool, twist it round. That twisting just makes it a little bit of a smaller point. You don't want to sort of have a big line and the tail be massive. Twist it round. So here we are with the white tail. Let it fluff up. There we go. And then take the needle and, yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a sort of swirling, a circling round helps you get the really sort of nice round little fluffy shape. And try not to over felt it in. So there we are. The white doesn't look too bad. Just felting it in. Make sure it's firmly attached though, that the tail doesn't fall off. So well done. You know, you've done your 3 sheep baubles. You could definitely give 1 or 2 away and keep 1 for yourself, or you could keep them all for yourself and be very proud of them. Like I said, they're very easy to do, easy to play around with. You could transfer this design to any sort of animal really. But there we go. So there's the white fluffy tail. All done. So great. Let's hopefully we get to see them all together before we go. I have a little bit of white on the end of that there. See that horn, but it doesn't notice too much. So well done. Here they are all finished. Thank you for purchasing this kit. If you bought the kit, if you'd like to buy the kit, please go to my Etsy shop link in description, and take care everybody, and we'll see you again soon. Bye.